Thank you for joining me, Mark. Can you please let people know what you do and how long you've been working in the education sector for, please?
Sure. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to chat today. So my name is Mark Dolling. I am Strategic Development Director at eEnergy. We support organisations across the education estate and wider public sector with decarbonisation solutions. I've been working to support the education estate for, I don't talk about specifics because it makes me feel really old now. So I've just started saying more than 30 years, and I shall say that for the remainder of my career. But majority of that time I spent in the public sector. I was Capital Programme Director at Milton Keynes Council, where I led the largest school build programme in the country for many years. And for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been working in the private sector, largely to support the education sector with decarbonisation solutions.
Thank you. So we'll jump in with the first question that's been left by Joe Marchant from the Boxing Academy. Joe asks, if schools are increasing the amount of electricity they plan to use due to decarbonisation initiatives, such as installing an air source heat pump, what is the best way to calculate the electrical intake, kVA, that schools will need in the future?
There are a couple of answers to this question. The first one is don't attempt it yourself, so get specialist support. There are a number of factors to take into account: the size of the heat pump, whether it's single phase or 3-phase supply, what the power output is for the site. This is very much specialist work where you need specialist support, and it's very, very much worth investing in that specialist support. Perhaps the more broader answer is I would encourage schools not to look at heat decarbonisation right now unless they've done a series of other works to their buildings and sites. What we're trying to promote is asking schools, colleges and other education institutions to do the right things in the right order. And heat decarbonisation should really be the very last thing that organisations do to get to net zero. So we would encourage them very strongly to lower their electricity consumption as far as possible before they electrify their heating system via things like LED lighting upgrades, solar, insulation upgrades, getting a better handle on their energy consumption data. Do all of those things, drive positive behavioural change, and then focus on heat decarbonisation last. Essentially because electricity is about 4.5 times the price of gas. So air source heat pumps, electrified heating systems are expensive to run. So minimise your consumption before you think about switching.
Thank you for answering Joe's question. So on to the next question is, how can schools become more sustainable and energy efficient against the backdrop of constrained capital funding?
In my current role with eEnergy, we're working with lots and lots of schools across the UK. So we've delivered more than 1,000 projects now to support schools. Key areas of focus, once a school has had a net zero roadmap report carried out, the obvious solutions in terms of the most impactful in reducing their running costs and their spend, and then obviously their carbon, is LED lighting upgrades, solar, getting a better handle on their energy consumption via data. So using half-hourly data, lots of great support networks out there for schools, things like Energy Sparks. There are meters that can provide access to live consumption data. So we have a solution which gives schools an insight into exactly what they're consuming and when they're consuming. They can spend a little bit of money on getting some expert support to program heating systems and BMS systems. Those things are really complicated, often left to the site manager. Site manager can change over the years. So spending a couple of hours of time for an engineer to come in and reprogram those systems can really have a strong payback. And then using data, particularly to engage staff and to engage pupils in behavioural change. So when you put data into the hands of site users and pupils, if you excuse the pun, it can shine a light on areas, hotspots of consumption, and that can have a really profound effect on driving positive behavioural change.
And is there a role for schools to play in sort of wider community sort of net zero transition?
As local authorities now, virtually all local authorities have set climate emergency policies where they've made commitments to be net zero as a place, often in advance of the UK target of 2050. So local authorities are now starting to think about how they can lead by example and decarbonise their own estate. And more broadly, I think schools have an integral role to play in that. I mean, there is literally a school in every community in the UK. And if you think about the connectivity that those schools have, both in terms of pupils and students going back to their families and being able to positively influence behaviours in the home, but also the connectivity schools have to local businesses and communities. I mean, schools, multi-academy trusts are also really big procurers. So in their buying activity, if they can promote sustainability, businesses will follow suit. So I think schools, have got a really exciting role to play actually moving forward over the next 10 or 20 years.
And just picking up on that and the role that schools can play, I mean, how can schools sort of positively engage pupils in the wider communities in their drive to decarbonise?
Yeah, so I think coming back to this point about data and insight. So if schools are proceeding with projects, LED lighting, solar, grounds development projects, to actually engage those students in the process, to promote what's going on. There's a real issue currently with climate anxiety amongst young people. So I think in the run-up to, I think it was COP27, Save the Children did a survey of 3,000 school pupils in the UK, and 70%, more than 70% of them said that they were anxious about the world that they are going to inherit. So actually demonstrating to those pupils that their school and their wider school community are taking positive steps to decarbonise is really good from that perspective. So promoting what you're doing, getting them engaged in those projects is a great place to start. I mean, organisations like Let's Go Zero as well. Schools could sign up to support that campaign. That networks them with other schools and organisations across the country. That provides them with free support to help them along the way in terms of their decarbonisation journey.
Thank you. You've been a great supporter of Education Estates over the years. You're exhibiting this year, you're sponsoring the Department for Education Sustainability Award, and have been a serial attender for many years. In your opinion, what do your peer group and attendees get out of coming to an event such as Education Estates?
Well, I mean, the reason I've been such a strong supporter is because I genuinely think it's the best forum annually for our sector, and it operates on a number of levels. So in terms of sort of peer-to-peer, exchanging experience, ideas, attendees, they can engage with suppliers at the event. There's a great lineup of speakers every year. So from a kind of education perspective, learning about new initiatives. It can become a bit of a therapy session, actually, where you can compare your experiences with your peers, and realize that it's not so terrible what you're doing, or the issues in your school are shared by many others. And I think importantly now, also the opportunity to celebrate success. So I think the award, that's why we as a business are really keen to continue to support the DFE Sustainable Schools Award, the opportunity to step back and reflect on successes, not just the challenges the sector face, but the awards dinner is a fantastic forum to showcase successes across the sector and share that good news. So yeah, we love the conference, and we'll continue to support it as much as we can.
Thank you. Now, as you said, you've been in the sector for a while, and you're very experienced and you're very well known. Can you share something about yourself that the audience may not already know about you?
Yeah, I've thought about this. I like to talk, so most things people know about me. I'm a bit of an open book, unfortunately, and I'm certainly not going to go down the football route after Sharon Wright's revelations, because she's Premiership standard, and sadly I'm an MK Dons season ticket holder. So um, what perhaps people don't know about me is a few years ago I had the classic sort of midlife crisis and decided I was going to learn a new skill. So I decided to never ridden a motorbike before, but I decided I was going to take my motorbike test and buy myself a motorbike. So that's what I did. So often you will see me around the country lanes of sunny Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire on a Sunday afternoon, riding my 950 Scrambler motorbike. So, and I find that very therapeutic. It's I have to concentrate on riding the bike, otherwise I'll end up in a hedgerow somewhere. And it allows me to switch off from work and not think about anything other than what I'm doing, which I think is really great. So so I'm an avid weekend warrior on a motorbike.
So my next conversation is with Luke Pargeter, the Chief Executive Officer at I Am Compliant. What question would you like me to ask Luke during our conversation?
Okay, so I think the issue of sort of facilities management and compliance, particularly prevalent at the moment. I'm thinking about as schools advance, as PFI schools really, over the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to start to see PFI schools handed back. And in many cases, those schools have not really had a leading role in compliance or managing their own facilities for up to 25 years. So I think I would ask Luke what advice he would have and what are the key aspects those schools should consider when taking back ownership and management of those facilities.
Thank you, and I'll put that question to Luke shortly. Mark, thank you so much for joining me. Very much look forward to seeing you and your team at Education Estates in October. And once again, thank you for all that you do for us. And those that are eligible to enter into the Department for Education Sustainability Award, please do so by the 19th of July and be in with a chance of winning a cash prize from the DfE. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Cheers.